This long video is brought to you thanks my patrons on Patreon. Hi everyone, my name is David Revoix, and in this video I will show you how to make a comic page using Krita. This tutorial will learn you the various steps I'm using on my webcomic Pepper and Carrot to reach this type of final rendering. This video will also be a good introduction to Krita around a practical example. Check the video description if you want to discover or jump directly to a specific topic. As you can hear by my accent, I'm French and English is not my native language. I'm also not a really skilled English speaker, so you will find a lot of hesitation into this tutorial because I'm recording them live. So sorry about this, and I hope you will understand the effort I put into recording this, and I hope also you will have no problem with understanding the content of the tutorial. I'm using Krita version 3 with a basic customization of the interface. On the right, I'm using mainly 3 dockers. The top, the advanced color selector. At the center, the brush preset with a pack of my free brushes, and you will find a link to download them below the video on the description. And at the bottom, you will find the layer docker. I don't have a tool option docker around because I prefer to have it plugged on my toolbar. So you can set up it via the settings, in General, Tools, and at the tool option location, select in toolbar. Finally, for my toolbar on the left, I'm using the lower size of icon, and you can set it with a right click over it. Our first step is to transform a story into a storyboard. I'm preparing here a A4 landscape page in Krita to draw my storyboard. For this tutorial, I don't have a complex story. It's just a simple paragraph with the character Chichimi and a dragon. It's a random story I made especially for this tutorial. My first step is to break down this paragraph into separate actions and obtain 5 panels. I usually create page with 4, 5 or sometimes 3 panels. Then I'm drawing the panel as a movie storyboard without thinking about the comic page layout. The next step is to take care of the layout. And for this, I'll need to open 2 documents side by side in Krita. In my settings, I have the sub-window mode activated. You can find it on General, Windows, and switch tab for sub-windows. This way, I can reduce the storyboard on a side of the canvas and open my page template on the other side. You can download my comic page template. The link is in the video description. So in our storyboard, we can't put all the frame this way because our page is much more smaller. So we will have to change the layout and sometimes change the drawing too. But first I want to see what panels can be easier to frame differently. For example, this one can be a very wide panel like this. So can take the eraser and resize it. And also these 3 one at the end are actions that are very near in the timeline. Take it, throw it, poof. So I think I will decide to go for a page like this with landscape on the top, main, because I already saw that this is the frame I would like to draw and show a more detail on it, and maybe the more interesting in the page. And then 3 panel with Shishimi here, with the object, throwing and in the water. So I can already adapt my page layout, and I will click on the frame layer, and I will select the selection tool. It's the top one, shape manipulation tool. And I will just take this separator, click on them, and press delete on keyboard because I don't need them. And I will get almost the same layout. I'll take this one and move it a bit on the top, this way, and maybe this one a bit this way. I will zoom here to extend this one and this one. So on my template, the border of the comic are in gray, but you can change the color later and add some border and add some decoration. I will show it. This is only because it's convenient for me to keep drawing in black and white and have the border with a dark color at first. So as you can see on the layer, we have a little grid here on the top. You can activate or remove it, and so I can adjust the panel to fit the grid. So the landscape here, the main shot here. For this one, maybe just a little bit more room, and I don't like really the ratio of this one, so I will just move it a little tiny bit up. And yes, I think it will be my page layout. So I will just save this one, save as, just going here, I'm doing a folder, artwork. I can also place a shortcut here, and I will just name it my comic page for this tutorial, _001, because maybe I will save more than one version, and save it. Okay, now I will transfer the storyboard on this, so I can select the selection tool. I'll click on the header here and select the storyboard, Ctrl C, going to the header of my page, and Ctrl V. So the storyboard is a lot smaller, but it's normal. So just press Ctrl T to extend. I'm resizing. And I try to frame a bit the storyboard. This will give me just a big guideline, but we have to redraw everything. Pressing enter. And first panel is done. Second panel, I select the storyboard and I continue. For this one, we have a completely different ratio. So it's a bit more tricky. Maybe I will have to redraw it. Maybe I will have to redraw it for this 3, and that's not a problem. So I have my pastel layer here, and I will just take them up to the sketch one, layer, here, and then I will flat them on the sketch with Ctrl E. So I have a little glitch, sometimes it's happen, just blink the visibility of the frame to remove this little display bug. And I will storyboard now the other panel. So back to the brush, taking this preset, pressing Shift to resize, and I will lower the opacity. Probably can do something like this. I will save a little room here for the speech bubble. The end with the object. And we will try to have like a curve here of after the hand with the object showing that she threw it, and here an action that it's on the water. Oops. Just doing selection tool, center it a bit, and deselect. And on the corner, maybe the eyes of the dragon like this. I don't like this line. I will remove it. And as this way I start to clean my storyboard just a little bit. So this panel are not really linked. Just it was some visual guide. And now I have a pretty crappy storyboard, but I have a storyboard, so I know the layout, what type of action will happen on the panels, and it's already a good base because I'm at the good resolution to start to draw over. This step, pre-prod, I will save it on my artwork. I select my comic page and 00, just to save it in case I need it later, but I don't think I will need it. And for this page, I will save it with Ctrl S too. So now to transform our crappy storyboard into a drawing or a painting, we need to do a lot of work on the top of this. Of course, this is not final, this is just the idea. And the first thing I will do is to zoom a little bit and to make it visible, the compo layer. It's a layer for the composition. And I select the shape manipulation tool because it's a vector layer. And I select all the object of the grid of the composition, and I resize it to the panel size, like this. And I press Ctrl C, Ctrl V to duplicate it, and I repeat the same process over all the panel. So this is always good to have an idea of the center of the panel, or the diagonal, or the third. I pretty like the third rule. I know it's controversial, but There is some recipe for making better composition, and I think it works well. So I like to keep an eye on my composition. And when it's done, you can reduce the opacity of the composition layer because we only need it to be slightly visible, like this. Something you probably noticed is the panel color here are a bit similar than the background color of Krita. It allows me to focus a bit better on the panel and consider them like different picture when I will start to draw. If you want to customize the color of the background of Krita, you can find it in Setting, Configure Krita, Display, and it's the canvas border color here. So just click on it, and you can even pick a screen color like this and take the color of your frame as a target. Press OK, OK, and you will get a very similar matching color for outside of your document and for your panel color. So I will also hide the grade here because I don't need it anymore. And I will rename this sketch layer as storyboard. And I will reduce the opacity of the storyboard. I'll create on the top a new layer named Paint. And I will start to paint over my storyboard and to make a better composition. To make a better drawing on the top of this storyboard, there is mainly two approaches I like. The first one is to take the storyboard and reduce a bit more the opacity, like this, and on a paint layer, take a pencil preset, I will zoom at 50%, and start to just sketch some volume on the top. For example, like the shape of the head, shape of the torso, etc., etc., and then find the first line, etc. This is the first way I like because it's something more traditional with the white of the paper, with a pencil approach. Then you take another pencil preset a bit more dark and you just start to improve the detail. This is the first type, and the second type is something I'm doing a bit more recently. It's just keep the storyboard a bit visible like this, and on the paint layer take a brush preset like this one and directly paint some area. So I just paint over, and this way I'm more approaching the artwork by mass, by silhouette. And then when I have the silhouette I like, I will take the pencil, do another layer, and start to outline it. So yes, this is just a little summary of what you will see next, because I won't comment the next minute. I will do a 1 minute non-commented, and I will accelerate the video because now I will just paint, and all the tool I will use will be this one. And I will select maybe white color, maybe I will pick color on the screen with the Control key, and dark color, white color, and I will paint like this over my storyboard, so at any moment I can erase and see what I was doing, and sometime I will even paint under the storyboard. So I erase now, and I will start the time lapse. There will be a little clock on the corner if you want to skip it on the video and just jump to the next part commented. And that's how we end our storyboard. It's like a painted storyboard result. As you can see, the faces are not detailed, but they are detailed enough to have an idea of the story. And at this point, if you have many pages, like 7, 10 or 30, you can already read your story and fix your storytelling. So I really like this step because it doesn't cost a lot in time to redo a panel. So it's still not too late to fix one. And you can review the storytelling, add a bit of ambience, start to think about the light placement. That's why I like the gray. So now I know that the light will come from here, and I will already know where the detail are important because of this light source and where the detail are not important. So I just flattened the two layers I had into the paint layer, and we will move now to the next step. And the next step will be to add more detail on the main point of the illustration. So there is the face, of course. There is a lot of work to make them a good design, and the end and the background. And for the background, I will just add a perspective layer. It's a grid for perspective, and it's a grid I have in my resource, and you will find the link on the description below the video also. I just take my grid on my file explorer, and I will drag and drop it on my canvas. So up, and I press insert as a new layer. So it's just a big star of line, and press Ctrl T. As you can see, it's a big picture with star. I made this picture with Inkscape, a vector editor, and I resize it to the size of my panel. So here will be my vanishing point, and I check if the line will be good for the castle, and it's okay. So press Enter, So this is a big picture. It will take some time to resize, but now I have my grid ready. I will just select the select tool and remove a bit the part of the perspective that are over the other panel. The other panel have also a perspective, but it's not so needing to get a grid for it. You can get a feeling like this. That is quite okay. So I will just keep the grid for this view, especially for the design. And I need another one here for this type of angle. So I just duplicate this one. And I move it. And I keep the vanishing point on the same. On the same horizon line, like this, and I try to adapt it to my crappy sketch, like this. So I have an idea now how this perspective will work for this city in background. If I want to color this line of perspective, I just press Ctrl U and press colorize. I put a bit of lightness and a lot of saturation, and as you see, the guide will start to color in red, and if you change the hue, you will get some blue and etc. So just take some bright blue and I redo the same. I can just click here, last used, and change the, we'll take a red one for this one. So now we have some color red line for this guide. Press Ctrl E and name it persp for perspective, and I will place it on the top layer here. Maybe this kernel of the perspective vanishing point I didn't need. So just press the brush. I take an eraser, a soft one, and I just remove this kernel because it will be a bit hard to paint with this one visible. I reduce a bit the opacity. Yes, now it's good enough for me to be guided to do some detail about this. So I will start again another time lapse now. And in this time lapse, I will select the paint layer. I will directly paint on the paint layer, and I will just add some more detail. So see you back in 1 minute. Oh, and don't forget to save. So now our detail path is finished. It's not a big detailing. As you can see, there is still a lot of parts that are pretty rough and speed painting, but there is also area with already pretty good detail. And by detail, I mean now we can see what will be the pose of Shishimi, what will be a facial expression here or here, what is the position of the hand. As you can see, they are still not really detailed enough, still a bit weak. As you could see also, I like to play with the design during the painting. I changed quite little things with the castle, with the design of the dragon, and this is probably because I was used to do some concept art before with speed painting, and so drawing with painting directly with this gray is good for me because I can be a bit more creative. I'm not a prisoner of my line, but I really like doing lines. So I will add now a bit of line. That's the next step. And to add them, first, if you want to see, I can blink the layer. It was the version before. And if I turn the visibility of my layer with detail, you can see how the detail changed. But I don't need this layer anymore, so I just press select the top layer, and I will press Ctrl E to just merge it down. If you keep the mouse over, you see on the preview that we have some painting around the canvas. It's really visible on the top part. So if I remove the frame, you can see there is some painting, but we have also painting outside. And if you want to clean it, because your fill size will be smaller, you can go to Image and Trim to Image Size. So sometimes there is some glitch like this. Don't panic, it's not a part of your artwork you lose, it's just a glitch of Krita. Just turn the visibility of one of your top layer off and bring it back, and all will be okay. It's a known bug. And now, if I select it, you can see it's not usually all trimmed, but maybe it's not so obvious and visible on this little preview. And now I will do a new save. So you saw that I can do Ctrl S to save as, and enter here a new number, like after 3, 4, etc. But there is also a built-in feature of Krita. You have here in File, and it's File, Save Incremental Version. And if you press it, it will automatically save with a new number at the end. So I press it, Krita is saving, and now you can see here I'm at the version 4, not the version 3. So if you want to keep a sort of history of your file, when you delete a layer and just move on, you can use the save incremental. So after this detailing of the storyboard, we can move to the next step. And for the next step, I will reintroduce some drawing and some line. I will ink my drawing. I know it's a bit weird to do the painting and to ink after, but that's how I like it. It's because when I paint, as I just explained it, I prefer to do some concept and to add some light source. And I like to reintroduce after just a very light line art. And for this, I just take the paint layer and I will reduce the opacity to something very bright, maybe like this. And on the top of this layer, I will just create a new paint layer and I will name it ink. And so I will just ink the characters because I like to keep the landscape as just painted. And I will also accelerate the time lapse during I ink this character. I will ink them just a note before launching the time-lapse. With this pencil, it's a dark pencil, and if you see at low pressure, I will select a good color. At low pressure, I will zoom it because on the video maybe it's not obvious, but at low pressure I have a little grain, and when I press, the line became a bit more regular. And here I have a grain, some fuzziness on it. And I really like it because it's a bit less digital and boring than a digital inking tool. So I prefer to use this. I'm not sure I will use the size 10. Maybe I will use it a bit smaller on some character, but just testing a bit. Yes, maybe I will use 9 or even something else. I will just probably continue some tests, but I will record all this part without audio so I can focus on the artwork. So another 3 detail before starting the inking. The first one is I will turn the ink layer to 85% of opacity. I will also use a shortcut on my keyboard to switch to the previous preset. So here, if I have the pencil and I draw, and then I take the eraser, I can press the slash on the numpad key to just go back to the previous. It's something I already introduced in another previous video, and you might be familiar with it, but I think it's still important to remind about this key. And the third thing I will use is of course the stabilizer. So this is my tool option, and I will switch from no smoothing to stabilizer. And here I have a setting for my tablet and my screen that works for me. If you want to find a good setting for you, just do the same setup than here. Put a very high value, like maybe 100 or 60, and then test. For example, I will use it because I will show you how to find a good one. So just do a large one like 100, like this. And then at the zoom you want to do inking, I will take the right brush. Try just to draw a small shape like this, or just like you would do for quickly draw a little circle for an eye or something. And as you can see here, maybe it's difficult because it's in little, but my movements are not following really my cursor. I feel limited. So in this case, I will reduce by 10. For example, here I will go to 90 and test again. And now I have a bit more control, but I still can't really close the circle. So I reduce by 10, by 10, by 10. And when I feel comfortable, it's the right setting. So I think with my other tablet, when I'm using the laptop in travel, I'm using other value. So it really depends on the size of your screen and on the size of your tablet. Even when I do a demo on a projector screen, I have to test and change it. It's not something absolute. If you just do the same value as I do, you will not find a good stabilizer for yourself. So yeah, I just test again. Yes, this one, I'm a bit free of my movement. And there is enough stabilization when I do a long curve to have this perfect smoothing that I like. So yes, it was just a little note to remind of this 85%, this key to switch, and this stabilizer I set up before inking. So now I will launch the time lapse. See you in 1 minute. I'm doing now a little pause in the inking process to show you some highlight of what was important for me. And first I wanted to show you, and you probably saw it, that I didn't really, I will increase a bit the opacity just before explaining so you can see better. So I increase the opacity of the sketch, and I didn't just outline the drawing. As you can see, the eye here is a little bit lower than this one, and when I drew I also fixed the volume, and I made all the part easier to read. For example, if I turn off the inking, you can see that this end was really simple, really not detailed, and I tried to draw over and not just outline my speed painting. It's not how it works. You can't just outline a speed painting. You need to really draw over and just invent and fix all the details. So when you did this, you can also add some details, and sometimes the speed painting under can help you to have a bit of chaos, some chaotic shape, to add some interesting details. Add the scale pattern on the back. If I turn off, and you can see that this little stroke of painting just guided me to make some suggestive little ink of scale. And so I wasn't tempted to draw every scale, but just to underline a few of them. And of course, all this little detail helps to make the render a bit more final. So now I will just continue. Also, as you can see, I flip the canvas with the M key for the mirror, so I can see the volume, the shape in a two-way, and it helps my brain to not focus on the same picture. So it's like if I can fix two pictures, and so I can refresh my eyes, refresh the picture I have in front of my eyes, and try to fix more error. So I will continue the inking now with all the other panel, and I will launch again the time lapse. Now the inking is done, and as you could see, I had to change the haircut of Chichimi here to match this one, because I preferred the haircut here. I also spent a lot of time on the hand, That's still my weak point on anatomy and on character, but I try to do always the best I can, and I spend more time on it. But it's not optimal yet. Maybe one day I will find a good way to make a perfectly drawn hand. I also didn't ink the background, or the part I think they will be easier to paint, and that's why I like this technique, because I don't have to ink everything, and I can save time, because on this part or on the tree, inking all the different little leaves of the tree can be really time consuming. And so now I will transform my inking into a black and white page. This is for the one who like to have a black and white result. In my case, it doesn't make a lot of sense, because I have some part of the drawing that are painted, but I will show you how to make a pure black and white page now. So first you will hide the visibility of your paint storyboard layer, so you keep only your black and white line, and then we will transform the frame. So just before doing this, I think it's wise to do a little save. I will do an incremental version, and going to version 6 here, and I will flip with M key to the original mirror view, because I was in mirrorhead, but as you could see, I draw on both sides, so it doesn't really matter to me, but there is an original orientation of the drawing, and I try to keep it. This orientation is because it's follow the rhythm of reading of the picture, so from top left to bottom right for me, because it's how I read. So you can see that I follow this diagonal on the picture, and here I just counter it to make a little a jump on the picture, and here just also, but that's just a little parenthesis on what I did. And to turn the frame, because I have this vector layer of frame, to something white with a black border, you just need to right click on it, and as you can see, there is already a little FX symbol on the right. So just right click and go to the layer style, and as you can see, this black gray color here is done by a color overlay into normal and into this dark color. So you can just turn this color to white, and now you have your frame in white, and just add a little stroke here. So by default the stroke is really large, yes, 21 pixel. We will turn it to 3 pixel. Just a thin line like this. Position outside, yes, it will be outside the vector object, but you can say at the center, so it's a little bit thinner. The mode multiply, no, just take a normal and 100%, and the color is already set to black. So yes, it's good, and you can press OK, and now you have your panel in white with a stroke like this. And you can still move your frame if you want. For example, this one, you can still move it here, and it might take time to refresh because we have an FX on it, but this process is a bit flexible, because as you can see, it auto merge the vector object together to trace your panel. So you can even make a large panel and put it a bit with this type of rotation if you want. Of course, the update time will be a bit longer, and sometimes it can be very dramatic with Krita to retrace some layer effects, but the job is done, and that's the main part. So let's wait. Yes, as you can see, you can follow the rendering because it's so slow. Come on, come on. Okay, 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 okay. Yes, it remembers me the old ray tracing on the old 3D software. But when it's done, it's done. And in the recent version of Krita, the 3 version, and probably the future version, maybe this will be speed up this little step. And also when you work on another layer, all of these pixels don't refresh every time. So it's only when you move them that this thing is slow. But that's a price to pay with working with this type of flexibility, because as you could see, I could change the layout as I wanted, and I can change the color of the panel and the width of the line. So I will just undo all these things I did to go back to my layout. Just go back in time with Ctrl Z, Ctrl Z, Ctrl Z. And now I have my black and white page. I will turn back the visibility of my paint layer here under. So now I have my painted background and my character. I will just reveal a bit the opacity of my storyboard this way. And now I start to have a little shading, and that will help me to start the pre-color. At this step, I usually just fix a bit the background painting, and I adjust it. And I will do it on the fly because there is not a lot of things to fix. So I will do it in live demo. So just turning back the opacity of the layer a bit more, like this. And I will take a brush, maybe my favorite brush, and I will create a layer in between, say fix paint, for example, and just pick with Control the color, and I try to paint. And so I'm really bad to speak at the same time of painting, because I'm thinking about many things at the same time, but this is not really a big thing, and I don't want to launch a time lapse only for this little correction, this little fixing. So just doing them because after I want to show you how I prepare my artwork for the next step. So yeah, it's almost okay for this panel. I could refine it a bit more, but that will be the next step anyway. And here I thought about this, and maybe the belt. Yeah, maybe this shape a bit. There is always a big work of cleaning, but yes, I consider this okay for going to the next step. And the next step is usually the version that my translator have. It's a black and white version, so just merge now the speed painting with my fix. Just Ctrl E. So now I have only this version in gray, and I reduce it to 50%. So the gray are really bright, and so the eyes can still catch only the line art and still get some ideas about the painted element. And on the top of this, I'll add a filter layer just on the top of my painting. And filter layer, it's a filter, but that's just a filter that makes its work on the previous layer in the stack or all the bottom of the stack. And I will take the color, no, not the color, adjust and color balance. So this can take a bit of time to compute on your side. I usually just put the shadow, the shading, with a bit of blue in it, like this. Bit of cyan to not make it too much violet. So as you can see, it's subtle, but all the dark got slightly bluish, and I will take the mid-tone to something a bit red and yellow, just to make the picture just a little warm. And the bright, sometimes I leave them white like this because I think it looks good, but sometimes I just add just a little bit of yellow like this. And this way you obtain, it's not color red, but if you need to show these comic pages to, for example, in my case, it's all the translator team of Pepper and Carrot, and you obtain something that is a bit more sympathetic to the eyes than something black and white. You obtain something with a gradient of colors, and for just a little filter here. Something I also do with Pepper and Carrot is to remove the dark line on the panel, because I prefer only white panel. So just go back to the frame layer, vector layer, right click on it, layer style, and I just uncheck the stroke. That's how I obtain my borderless panel. And right now, at this step, because I say that this is the version I use to communicate with the translator, it's also the step I use to enter the speech balloon and the text, and also all the sound effects. At first, in the first episode of Pepper and Carrot, I was doing it with Krita here, and I was just turning the text layer on, and you can see you have a little default text, replace it if you can. But I remove this because now I do it only with Inkscape, and so we will do now a little chapter on Inkscape and how to make the speech balloon and use the resource I provide to add quick speech balloon and quick text on this picture. But we have a file that is a Krita file finishing by KRA, and Inkscape can't read this Cray file. So we need to do a transitional file, a transitional exported file, a flattened image. Don't use this export to save, but we need to do a transitional PNG file to work with Inkscape. So I will just save at first my KRA. And when this is saved, because the Krita picture can save all this layer, and I want to keep my layers, and I will just export. And export will just save a copy. So here I have all my pages, and I will do the my comic page without extension and PNG. Just typing the extension, save, and here I have some option for the PNG. Because I have a good processor, I use a maximum compression, but if it takes too much time, you can use 6 or just a bit lower value, but it will take more disk space, and press OK. So the exporting is in progress. As you can see, Krita doesn't react. It's almost like frozen, but I can see on my second screen that the file is saving. And if I take my file browser here, you can see that I have my exported picture here, And now that's a picture I can even share on internet if I want. Or that's a picture I can open with an image viewer. And I will be able to open it with Inkscape. So here is a little chapter about Inkscape. And I use Inkscape because the text tool is not really good in Krita right now, but if you are watching this video in 1 or 2 years after the publishing of this video, I'm sure Krita will have all the necessary tools to make good text and good speech bubble in Krita. It's almost have everything needed, just a problem of stability and problem of little glitch, visual bug that make the tool not really good to use on a daily basis and not really predictable if you have like a lot of page. And on Pepper and Carrot I have more than 100 page and there is like 30 translation. So if you do the math, I have like 3,000 page to manage. So it's a bit impossible with something buggy, a solution buggy. So, but it will change soon. So we make this little chapter about Inkscape. Inkscape is also an open source program about vector, and you can find it on inkscape.org if I remember. And on Linux, you can just use your package manager and your software source or every method to just install it. So here I have it. Let's see, maybe I'm just used to call it by opening a file, but yes, by default I think we have A4 pages on Inkscape, but I will check the document property, and yes, it's A4. So that's the same ratio as my template. And so I can just take my file manager, and you have my comic page here, and just do a drag and drop. And normally Inkscape will open it, the file in it. So it will probably ask you to, should we link the file or embed the file? It's up to you. I prefer to link them because it's easier after to refresh, but sometimes the option doesn't appear and we will have to change it later. So yeah, we will see. But at the moment I will just put the artwork here, and I'm pressing Ctrl to preserve the page ratio. And now I have my pages, and I will save this file as artwork, and I will use also the same file naming, my comic page, but this time in SVG, which is the native file of Inkscape. The next step I'm using is just to create here the text and change the font here and trace the speech balloon themselves. So I do them manually, just creating vector object and filling them with white and removing with shift and click the border. This is how I did all the first 10 episodes of Pepper and Carrot, and then I saw that all the speech balloon and all the shape are really coming back. There is not a lot of variety. So what I did is I made a big template, and so I just can do copy pasting, and it results in this big file here. So it's a file with ready-made a lot of vector object. I made them myself, and there is tail of speech balloon themselves with a lot of style. You have a lot of font with effects for ready speed effect, sound effect, sorry for my vocabulary and my English language. But yes, this file, you will find it also On the description of the video, you will find a link to download it. It will be part of this tutorial. And if you don't find it, try to find the original page of the tutorial. I will keep a version to download about it. And so the only things you have to do is to open this SVG file in Inkscape too. And I will also add the font I'm using here. It's the Lavi font, so it will be included in the pack. It's a font, open source font for Pepper and Carrot, and we kept the development on it. I'm not the original author. I will probably on this video overlay the name of the original creator because I don't know it. I don't remember the exact name, but a big thanks for this very good font for comic, and there is not a lot of good open source comic fonts, so that was a real pleasure to find it. So at first I start with the text themselves. This is the default non-flowered text. Oh, maybe I will fix my template a bit. Oh. And just press Ctrl C, so it's open in an Inkscape view, and I press back my other. So in this view, Chishimi will say nothing, and maybe she will say a little thing here. So I just add something, and you can resize it to the size you want. And you can edit with a double click with the text. So I remember in my script I didn't have some dialogue, so it's a bit hard to improvise a dialogue now I'm recording. We'll just say that my English is not really good to compose dialogue in English, so should we really keep this? I will not write this ring because it's obvious it's a ring, finger ring. So should we really keep this? She's thinking out loud. And sorry for the cheesy dialogue, but it's just something I'm improvising. And 3 little dot, probably not. And she decided to put it in the water. This is not the part of a bigger story. This is like a little scene for this tutorial. So I'm just trying to see where I can put my text. And as you can see, Inkscape also have some glitch visually. You can hear a little, and if you zoom in back, you will make a refresh. So we have our text, and I will take back my comic template. We'll take maybe this shape of balloon here. Ctrl C, going back to my comic page, and I will press Ctrl V to paste it. And now my object, speech balloon, is on the top of the text. So I just go here and ask to lower the position of the object. So up. I like the white speech balloon with white frame because you can merge them sometime like this. Something I also really like sometime to do is to reduce the opacity of the frame, just a bit of the speech balloon. And I will add a little tail to show that this balloon comes from her mouth and not from the ring or not from the dragon. So we'll take maybe this one. It's a weak one, a bit hesitant, and Chishimi speak a bit like this. Oops, this is Krita. This is a good one. So if you click a second time on the object, you have the rotation, and if you click one time, you can scale them. It's a very good system. Something I always like it from the ergonomy of Inkscape. Really easy to use. And if you want to change the point of the vector object, you have here another selection tool. And you can just drag a little to make the speech balloon looking a bit better. Okay, so now it's okay, I think, for this one. Maybe not the best. I will take another speech balloon for the probably not. No, she's not screaming it. Just a regular rounded balloon, so just take another one. Resizing. Putting it in the background. And I will add just a little tail to show that it's still her from here. That's big. Up. So a little tail I can use. That is more direct. This one. Like this. Rotation. Scaling. And this way. And we will add a little sound effects here. So I have some ready-made text effect with some effect to have some shadow and some outline. This one looks good, but no, maybe a bit too shaky. So maybe I will take this one, just a simple one with black. Oops, I passed that into Krita. This is the Inkscape. And I don't know the sound effect of water in English. And maybe say pliff. No, doesn't sound really good. Pliff. Ploof. Ploof. Wow. That's. You probably will comment on the video to tell me what is the right sound. But yes, for this tutorial, I think it will be okay. So just a little sound like this. Maybe here I can also do a little pick because the finger just do the sound. So whoop, we'll take maybe just a default text. I can duplicate this one and do pick. I will remove the dot. That's okay. And if you click a second time, you have also this one to deform a bit. So I will use this fake italic effect, put it a bit like this, and I think it's okay. So when it's done, you can save your SVG, your Inkscape project. Now let's come back to Krita, and in this chapter we will do a colorization of our comic pages. And for this I will first remove the color balance, because we will start from the ink layer and our gray layer, the one we made the sketch with. So I turn it to 100% again, just to get back the value. And I will try to fix the value first. So I will duplicate it. And I see that when I duplicate it, I have some little refreshing problem here. And it's because my layer here is partially transparent. So I want to flatten all the pixels above this. So I will create another layer. We'll name it BG for background as temporary. Just filling this layer with a white color, and I flatten this one under. So now when I duplicate this layer, a copy of background, restore the old name, paint, and copy of paint. Now the layer have solid color on it. So this one and this one, it makes no difference. So why I duplicate it, it's just because if I want to do some change on this one layer, I keep a backup layer under. So if I do something, just a mistake, I can still keep some information about the previous layer. And I often work this way. I work on a separate layer, and when the result is okay, I just flatten it. If we want to change the value of our paint layer, we will have mainly three tools. The first two are filter. So we have the adjust level here, and you have some ruler that can just improve the contrast, but also you can cut the black or cut the white. That's the first tool we have to tweak value. The second tool is a bit similar, and it's in filter, adjust, and it's the color adjustment curve. And here you have the RGBA channel, that are all the channels, so you can also do some tweaks here. But there is a channel that is lightness, that is a bit more interesting. So if we want to make some contrast, we just make a S curve like this, and you will see some good contrast happening. And also the third and the last way we will use to improve contrast is also with the brush, and using a preset. I have some preset like this one to improve the light, or this one it's an overlay blending mode. So with a dark color, you can darken some zone, some area, and with some bright color, you can brighten, but at the same time, you don't destroy everything like a normal brush. So you can play on a big halo of light like this way. So I will use these three methods to improve the value of this picture. And I will do maybe a little time lapse about it. Maybe I will do it live and comment why I'm doing it. It will maybe take time, but maybe it will be more interesting. The first thing we will do is to take the selection tool, rectangular, and we will do a rectangle around the panel we want to change. So this way I will change only the content of this panel with the filter and not all the other panel, because I didn't make the same value on all the panel and I need to tweak only one by one. So I will call the level filter with Ctrl L and just improve a bit the darkness, because it's a night scene. So I want some pretty low value on it. And because I'm doing a comic style, I want the line art to still be a bit visible. So I will ask the black to not be pure black, but to be just a dark gray like this. And you can hit preview button. So we went from something that is really bright, almost looking like a bright scene, to something that is really low and really dark. Maybe a bit too much, so maybe I will play a bit with the setting. Preview. This is a bit darker. This is a bit that I like. This looks a bit more okay to my eyes. So just pressing OK, and we have the result. So we can still hide the visibility of the top layer to see what we did, and if we have an effect that is too strong, we can still also reduce the opacity and merge the two layers together. That's why I always keep a backup. I will do the same for the other now, and I will probably launch a time lapse and accelerate the video. As you can see, I already accelerate because it's a bit repetitive, and I first will fix all the value, then I will clean the picture and add a color balance on all the panels, and the next step will be to apply some blending mode. So I'm launching a big time lapse, and feel free to skip it because it's how I finish the color sketch. So during the previous time lapse, what I did was to focus on the lighting, and as you could see, if I turn off what I did to what was previously on my first sketch, the light were coming from the top, so all the dragon was lighting from the top, and I decided during this color sketch and during this cooking of color, not only to influence the color, but also to paint another shading. And I added now only the light from the moon, which make a big rim light on the character. So if I put off, and you can see, and of course this also affects this character. And I also could make a point of warm color here and on the sky, so I can lead the eyes on this area and put some other area outside a bit colder. So this is a system I used here, also here a bit brighter color, and here to lead the action. Another step before starting to detail is to also take care of the color of our line art. So the line art is this layer, ink, and if I zoom in, you can see that I drew it with black color. And sometimes this black color can be sufficient for your type of rendering, but for the style of pepper and carrot, I try to sometimes erase a part of the line art, and especially when there is like this a big rim light, like here, and I think it's not looking natural to have a very bright light source like this of the moon, and suddenly a black line. I think it doesn't look right, but I like when the black line are like this, and in this case the black line looks a bit like some deep shadow or detail, so it's okay. And sometimes when the black line are outside the volume, they can just look like the volume is turning and there is a little part in the shadow. So this type of line works, and some other type of line, like this black line on the air, doesn't work. Also, like the black line on the nose here is too dark for a skin color. So on the skin you will never have a black shadow like this. So this is heavy stylization, same for this line of the face, and so I don't like it a lot. So what I will try to do is to color the line art, and I will show you my technique to color the line art. To color the line art, it will be a bit easy because I drew this line art directly on a transparent layer. So this line art only has dark pixel or semi-transparent dark pixel and transparent pixel. What I like is just to lock the alpha, so it means locking the transparency of the channel here, the little checkerboard, and you see there is a padlock appearing. And select the color I want. In my case it's a red and like 1 or 1.5 value, so very dark red like this, or a very saturated brown. And I will just edit fill with foreground color. And this way I will get the exact color of the line art I want. So this is just to give a little warm touch to the line art, to all the shadow, as you can see here and here, so at first. And because now we don't have a very black, very dark line art, I will put this layer into multiply blending mode. And so you will see that when the line art will be over a dark color, like here, the line will turn a bit black. So if I put it to normal like before, it will look a bit unnatural to me to have a similar value on the shadow. But with multiply, we have it turning black on a black area, and on bright, like here, turning like a brown area. So our setup is almost finished, and during the next step, it will be a time-lapse step. What I will do, and what you will see me doing, is I will take my brush, so just this brush, and sometime I will select the ink layer, and because it's alpha locked, I can just take some yellow and paint the line art just a bit yellow at this right moment. So if I right click and isolate the layer just to see the content of this layer, you will see that now I painted, I colored my line art into this color. And if I want to come back to the dark red, I just select the red value, and just color it back. So this way I can't really go wrong. It's a very flexible way. And if I want to paint the shadow on the skin of Chichimi on the line art with a brighter red like this, you can see that I can color my line art really easily this way, and I can always come back and color it darker later. So this is what I will do, especially on all the surface with a bright light on it. like this and like this. And it will be part of my detailing cleaning pass. So I will just do a little save, incremental version, and launch a time lapse. So one of the first post-production effect we will do is a pass on the paint layer, just a copy of the paint layer with a big brush with the dodge, color dodge blending mode, and we will boost the light, so the light of the moon and also the light of the little fire here. And I will blink the layer so you can see the difference. It's a little post effect, but always good on the light source. The second effect is a fog effect, and for this you need a new layer on the top of the ink in lighten mode and just a scribble some particle with it with a big brush, and then put some filter, some Gaussian blur filter on it. And you can also smudge a bit the detail and reduce the opacity to make a sort of fog on the overall, even on the top of the inking. Another effect is just to take a part of the picture, to duplicate it, and here I'm using a gimmick filter, ripple, and I will use also the gimmick filter water to obtain some deformation and to paint more easily the ripple and deformation on the water of this panel. Another lighting effect, and this is a really important one in my opinion, is about all the little glossy points. And for this I create a new layer here, and I usually name it paint over, because I don't limit this layer just to paint some glossy point, but sometimes to do some other type of correction on the top. So it's a layer on the top of our stack, our graphic stack in this group, and I'm used it to paint the reflection, like the little white point of the gloss in the eyes. Usually taking some white and a very small brush like this and doing little reflection. I also like to take a pencil and just some little stroke of white pencil here and there. Now our gloss pass is done, and as you could see, I not only added some white point during this time lapse, but I also added some little correction here and there, like little shadow here. I will just blink the paint over layer so you can see. Fixing here just a blue shadow. So I use this paint over layer to just fix quickly a lot of little things, but mainly to add little white point. So we will enter now in the last step, and the last step, when all is done, like now, is to just add a filter layer on the top of the graphics, in my case, and it's a dynamic filter, and this filter will be on all the picture except the frame. Oh, it appears into the group, but I will move it later. And this filter is the Enhance Sharpen. So this layer don't have any configuration. You don't have the power or the opacity of the Sharpen filter here. But as you can see, by default, it's pretty strong, so I will just move this filter. I will rename it directly Sharpen. You can see there is a little filter icon here. And if I turn it off, as you can see, you will get a lot of crispy detail with it. but you will get also a lot of noise if you zoom in. And this noise is not really good if you print or if you do something, so that's why it's good to keep it dynamic. I never use it 100%, sometimes I use it like 60%. So you can reduce the opacity of a layer like this, and the effect will be a bit more subtle. So sometimes even like 35%. And compared to this blurry result, you will already get a little bit more detail. So I will just set up the sharpen layer. I think the comic will be seen online at 40%. So most people will see the comic and read the comic at this size. Just watching. I think I use 60% or 70% sometime on Pepper and Carrot. I have to check, but I'm almost sure. You can find it on the source. Each comic has a sharpened layer like this. So yes, it makes the detail a little bit more crispy. And now when you have your result, you can do the last saving. So I will call it 19 and underscore final to know that this is the final version. So we reach the end of this video, and I hope all this long video tutorial did help you and will inspire you to create beautiful comic stories. It took me 10 days to record all this video and do all the video editing too. And at final, I had more than 15 hours of video to compress into less than 2 hours of final video. Be sure I did my best to compress all this length, and I'll try to do better next time for sure. Also, I couldn't spend all this time without the financial support of my patron on Patreon, so a big thanks to them for supporting the webcomic Pepper and Carrot day after day, and also by supporting the webcomic, they support the free bonus between the episode, and this video is a free bonus between the episode. So add the brush kit, add the template, and add everything you could download today. So a big thank you also for all the comments, the reshare, and everything around the community and around this channel. It makes me really happy, and see you on the next video. I don't know if it will be shorter or longer, but I will try to do something, I promise it. Bye bye.